ended.
And then he shut him in a vault as Griphook. He depressed a galaxy as Marvin. He did some Elvis as the Leprechaun.
Thank you very much.
He wore a big beard as Knickerbrick. He danced a jig for Johnny Depp. He travelled abroad with an idiot.
What are you doing?
And he stood in a bin with a face for Ricky Gervais. He's 3 feet 6 inches tall, wears UK size 4 shoes, and has blue-green eyes. He has 3 employees, has his own app, and has already written his autobiography. He could have been in Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, and Iron Man. But he wasn't. Instead, he's here now. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your host and his disproportionately large ego, Mr. Warwick Davis.
So you all enjoying Celebration Europe? Yeah. Fantastic, and the party's only halfway through. Not even that yet, but it's great to see you all here so early in the morning for what promises to be a fantastic and fascinating show. I'm very proud and delighted to be up here to introduce Kathleen Kennedy today to you all. My journey with Star Wars started many, many years ago. Not in a galaxy far, far away, but back in London when I was just 11 years old. And before that, I was a fan, just like all of you guys here today. And, you know, little did I know that being a fan of that film would give me so much in life. It's given me a career, a job that I love, and it's allowed me to host events such as this. And it makes me very, very proud. And, you know, talking of fans, I'd love to perhaps chat to one of you before we get started here. Mark, have we got somebody we can have a chat with out there?
Yes, we do.
Over here.
We got a really hairy guy right here.
Oh, we got a hairy guy.
Yeah, a hairy guy.
Okay.
Yes.
Come over here. Here he is. Oh, I say. Hello. What's your name? Put the microphone up to your face.
Florian.
What's your name?
Florian.
Florian. And you are dressed as sort of a half a Chewbacca.
Yes.
Yeah. It's not a great outfit to wear in this weather, is it?
Isn't it?
You know, I can sympathise with you because I've been in the furry outfits in the past.
Yes, it's a real hot one.
Is this the only outfit that you do?
Yes.
Yes. And are you regretting that?
Yes.
Yes. But it looks great, looks fantastic. Do you wish you were a little taller?
A bit.
Yes, I've had that thought in the past. Fantastic. Now, what brings you to Celebration? Why do you come?
I'm a real fan of it, and my first celebration here.
It's the first time, and how have you found it so far?
Really great.
Really great. What have been your highlights to date?
The world premiere of Clone Wars, of Star Wars Episode 2 in 3D.
You went to see that?
Yes.
Was it good?
Yeah, really.
Fabulous, fabulous. And what else? Have you met anyone that's particularly been...
No. I've seen Anthony Daniels last
Yes, I saw Anthony Daniels. Well, how was that?
A bit confused.
A bit confused? What you were or he was?
I was.
Yeah, he's always confused as well.
Yeah. He talks too much.
He talks too much. You heard it here, folks. Fantastic. Well, I hope you continue to have an amazing time here at Celebration Europe. And here's a little gift from me to take away to say thanks for talking to us. All right? Cheers. Thank you. A fan. Florian. Fantastic. Now, throughout Celebration, we're allowing you guys to interact with us and our guests through Twitter. And if you'd like to ask Kathleen Kennedy a question, which I'll be putting to her at the end of the show, then you can use this hashtag, Hashtag Ask Kathy. And please, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, no questions about episode 7. Unfortunately, Kathy cannot answer those questions, but she'll answer anything else. So if you'd like to get tweeting away during the show, then I'll put those questions to her at the end. Also, if you have a special Star Wars memory, a lovely photo you can share with us, you can do that through Star Wars Celebration hashtag. And I don't know, do we have any photos that we can show at the moment? I'm not sure. If we do, they'll come up on the screen. But yeah, send us your photos. We'd love to see how much of a good time you're having here at Celebration. Well, now it's time to bring on my very special guest for the day. She's a lady who's produced over 60 films that, when combined, have received 120 Academy Award nominations and grossed over $11 billion worldwide. She's brought us films such as E.T., Jurassic Park and Indiana Jones. And she's, oh yes, woo-woo. And she's just in some Americans. She's just embarked on her journey to that famous galaxy far, far away. Now, before we meet her, here's a short retrospective of her work.
I first met Kathy when we had offices right next to John Milius, and she was John Milius' assistant. As time went on, she was hired to be Steven's assistant, so that's when I got to know her really well, around Indiana Jones.
The thing that Kathy has always done, from the day she first started working for me, is bring a great deal of exclusivity. You feel she's never working on, or will work on, anything else except your movie.
Steven asked, could you build me a couple of models so we could figure out the truck chase in Raiders? And Kathy said, well, you know, I love building models. I'd love to do that too. So we spent a whole weekend making Jeeps and tanks and trucks. And I thought, I think I'm in love.
I've known Kathy so long that I knew Frank Marshall before she did. It seems like one day I went out for coffee. When I came back, she was producing E.T.
Kathy was amazing at organization and just keeping everybody in line. You know, there can be chaos going on, and Kathy can solve the problem in 5 seconds.
Anything that needed to be done on the movie, she was game. If we had to drive 100 miles in the middle of the Sahara Desert, she was game to do it.
She has tremendous knowledge and a great capacity for problem solving. She's been in every kind of situation.
No matter where we were, if there were poisonous snakes, or we were too close to a volcano, or we were in crazy, beautiful, wonderful situations, I always could take a deep breath when I would see Kathy sort of quietly and gracefully in the background.
She's fun and she's always lighthearted, even in the worst of times. She's sort of the pinpoint of light in an otherwise dark and chaotic experience.
What's so wonderful is that Kathy makes these really small, independent films that nobody sees, and she's okay with that. She just makes a really beautiful little small project that just goes out into the world that maybe just some friends and family, check out.
She has been devoted to getting the best out of the filmmaker in a way where she is serving my vision, but she's also serving the screenplay.
The contributions Kathy's made to all her films is
She doesn't seem to have any sort of personal agenda toward anything other than to get the film done as good as it can possibly be.
Are you telling me you built a time machine? Out of a DeLorean?
The sign of a really great producer is a producer who can work on a $4 million movie or a $120 million movie.
Whatever you do, ever feed him after midnight.
I'm inside your body. I'm possessed.
What's yours?
Holmes. Sherlock Holmes.
I'm not bad. I'm just drawn that way.
Welcome to Jurassic Park.
Welcome to America. Rock and roll.
make movies and know what it takes to make one movie.
Lightning doesn't strike twice in the same place.
The fact that she has a list of credits a mile long of one iconic film after another.
I see dead people.
Is astounding.
The list is an absolute good.
Kathy belongs to an elite group of filmmakers who continue to define great movie making.
To make a movie, it requires leadership, management, strength. She's a proven entity.
All my life I hate to fight.
I'm a boy.
At least it's real as I've ever made one.
Golly, even money that this next seat biscuit couldn't even finish 6 furlongs.
What happened in Warwick changes everything.
Attention, brother.
What is it? It's a horse that I'm wondering about to know himself.
The fate of human dignity is in our hands.
You really need to know what you're going to produce next for the next Star Wars film.
It is your destiny.
Kathy's a perfect choice for episode 7. She's been all over the world making movies, and she's great at assembling the right people. And I've got no doubt she's going to assemble a team of people to do the Star Wars films that are going to knock people out.
She had always made enormous movies, but here's a different challenge.
Jedi must have the deepest commitment.
She really respects legacy and heritage, but she's also an innovator. And we've always talked about the need to both respect the past and balance that with the future.
Remember, the Force will be with you, always.
Besides being one of the best producers in the business, she's able to support the creative process of the director, and I have complete confidence that she's going to make great Star Wars movies.
Ladies and gentlemen, please give a very special Star Wars welcome to Kathleen Kennedy.
Wishing I had a lightsaber up here. Looks great up there, but I needed one up here.
I've got one. It doesn't. No, I don't.
It doesn't work.
You just have to use your imagination with that. Okay. Yes. So basically, what I did there, I sort of handed you the mantle, didn't I? Which is what these people are so excited about, because you've just taken that on, really, and that's why everybody's so pleased to see you. You are the future.
Well, listen, this is a daunting proposition, and I can't do this without every single one of you out there. I have to say, the minute I came here yesterday, and this is the first time I've been to Celebration, I was just completely overwhelmed at what I was looking at. What you as fans have created, and how exciting it is to see the quality of the work and the commitment to Star Wars. It's the kind of thing we talk about every single day when we sit down and discuss the story and look to see where we're going with the future of Star Wars. It means a great deal to us, and I can see that it means a tremendous amount to you. So that's something that we want to protect.
Wow. Well, we'll come on to Star Wars a little bit later in the discussion, but looking at the retrospective of your work there, we're reminded of how many amazing projects you've been involved with throughout the years that have been part of us growing up and part of our movie-going experience for so many years.
Growing up.
Absolutely. But where did it all start for you? I mean, was there a moment in your life that you suddenly said, this is what I want to do, I want to be a filmmaker? What was your inspiration?
Well, it's interesting because I actually grew up in a pretty small town, so I didn't grow up in an environment where everybody was working in Hollywood. I don't come from Los Angeles, It's not something that anybody in my family did. So it really, I suppose, it sort of evolved over time. I took some classes in college, just like many film students or aficionados, I'm sure, here in the audience. And one thing after another, I became more and more interested in telling stories through cinema. And I went to see Close Encounters. And that is the movie that really galvanized my interest in wanting to get into the movie business. And then I know that my story sounds almost made up because one of the first people I met soon after I graduated was Steven Spielberg. And I started working on the movie 1941 as a production assistant and working specifically with John Milius, who was the executive producer at the time. And after that association, Steven asked me to come work for him. And the first script he put in front of me was Raiders of the Lost Ark. So that pretty much catapulted me into the movie business, and it's just been an incredible ride ever since.
Now that was the first time you met George. You were working as associate to Steven. Of course, you were there between these two giants of the industry. What was that like for you on one of your first films?
It was pretty amazing. I mean, Steven had already done Jaws and Close Encounters. George was just coming off of Star Wars, and I was just getting started in the movie business. So it was quite overwhelming to be in the midst of those two. And then it's where I met Frank, who I eventually married. So I was surrounded by some pretty powerful men, but I did find my own way, you know? But I had fantastic mentorship. There's no question that there was a real guidepost there on every level, and they all gave me incredible support.
And what was your first impression of George when you met him, and was there anything you can tell us?
You know, the great thing about George, and I really feel that this is still who he is he's just constantly full of ideas. And I think that it's no surprise the level of innovation that's gone on inside his company and the things that he and his company has been responsible for all these years, because he never turns it off. There's just constantly a flow of ideas.
Absolutely. And I mean, what's it like for you? I mean, you've produced so many great films throughout the years. I mean, as we saw the intro reel there, we were all cheering at the films that we've enjoyed. I mean, many of them I grew up with through the 80s in particular. What is it about a particular project that you're drawn to? You know, because your films are so diverse as well. You know, you've created these huge, you know, what we typify as blockbusters, and then there's the more historical projects as well. What draws you to these different projects?
You know, I think in so many ways, I'm attracted to the kind of movies that I like to go see. That's usually how it starts. And I tend to have very, very eclectic tastes. I'm interested in lots of different kinds of movies and lots of different kinds of stories. I can get just as excited about making a movie like Jurassic Park as I can about talking about doing a movie like Lincoln. And I think that's what it is. It keeps changing. It's always interesting. I think the great thing about making movies is it carries you into an experience that you might never have had in your lifetime, and you get to meet people involved in lots of different walks of life. And so those are the things. It's a complete experience. That's what I love about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And many of the films that you've worked on, of course, have broken new ground as far as, you know, technology and visual effects goes, etc. You know, what's it like going into a project, perhaps not completely knowing how you're going to solve a particular problem? I mean, your expertise, I guess, as a producer is in problem solving as well.
Well, I think the greatest thing, I love it when I read a script and I think it's fantastic, and then I set it down and I say to myself, oh my God, how are we going to do that? And that's very much the way we felt with Jurassic Park, for instance. You know, this was right at the cusp when no one had done a movie full of CG effects, ever. In fact, I had the good fortune of being involved in the movie that created the first CG effect ever in the history of film, and that was young Sherlock Holmes. And the visual effects supervisors were Dennis Murin and John Lasseter. And I don't know how many people know that, but it was the stained glass window that stepped into the church. And that was coming off another invention that happened inside Lucasfilm, which was the Pixar machine. The Pixar machine was actually creating CG effects in service to medical needs, and then it carried over eventually into the movie business. So the fact that I got to be there when the first wire model was used to have a dinosaur run across the screen was absolutely a game-changing moment. There were 5 or 6 of us sitting in the theater, Steven Spielberg and Dennis being 2 of them, and we saw this wire model run across the screen, and we all leapt out of our seats and we were screaming because we'd never seen anything like that. And that began a process over time of realizing that we could create the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park in a way that no one had ever seen before. And there's nothing more exciting than to be involved in that kind of technological innovation when the story ideas that you're working on actually contribute to pushing the technology. I believe that's what's so exciting about our business, is that the imagination drives that kind of innovation and new design.
Absolutely. And do you have a philosophy in deciding, how much you use visual effects to tell the story? How do you find the balance?
It's interesting. This is a conversation we're having all the time right now in the development of F7. We really... much like I'm sure many of you, that, looking at all the Star Wars movies and getting a feeling for what even some of the early films did in combination with real locations and special effects, that's something that we're looking very seriously at. So we're going to find some very cool locations that we're going to use in support of F7. And I think we're going to probably end up using every single tool in the toolbox to create the look of these movies. That's what we're really excited about.
I just wanted, as a side note, just to tell you, there's some really lovely places in England to film.
I know.
Really nice, some nice mountains and things. We could make somewhere look like a desert if you need it. It's all there. You talk about the toolbox there. What kind of things are in that toolbox then? I mean, you say we're going to use everything in there. There's visual effects. There's the shooting on location. I mean, it's...
Well, I mean, it goes right down to the things that I was just amazed at yesterday when I was walking around and seeing what you guys are doing. It's using model makers. It's using real droids. It's taking advantage of the artwork that gets done that you can actually touch and feel. We want to do that in combination with CG effects. We feel that that's what will make it go.
How did you feel when George asked you to sort of take over the reins at Lucasfilm and entrusted you with Star Wars? What was that moment like, and what made you say yes?
Well, it was interesting. We just went to have lunch. I had no idea that what he was going to ask me, but we were catching up on family and friends and talking about the movie business, and then all of a sudden, halfway through the lunch, he said, "Look, I don't know how much you know about my conversations about retiring, but I am thinking about slowing things down a bit and stepping aside, and I'd really like you to come in and run the company." And at first I didn't really realize what he had said. But once I did realize what he said, I answered pretty quickly. Not because it seems obvious, because obviously I think there's a lot of people out there that would love to be a part of this company, and I strongly encourage you to do that. But it's something that I realized was going to afford me an opportunity to take all the skills and all the things that I'd done all these years throughout the movie business and be a part of something so much bigger. And now that Star Wars has been bought by the Walt Disney Company, it's become even bigger because it's the biggest media company in the world. And the opportunities that affords us for Star Wars and the movies that we get to make inside the universe that George has created, that's just, I mean, I can't think of anything more fun and more exciting than doing that.
And at that meeting as well, to get a little bit more detail, did George ever talk about you having to wear a plaid shirt and growing a beard at any point? Was that something that he, it's a requirement of the job?
Well, in the old days, it used to be that you had to carry a cigar around if you were a producer.
Absolutely.
I haven't done any, no, I do have a plaid shirt, I have one.
Brilliant. Now, tell me around, talk about the process of selecting J.J. Abrams as a director. What were you looking for and what do you think you've got from him?
Well, you know, an interesting thing is I've actually known J.J. Abrams since he was about 15. I'll tell you a funny story. I was working as Steven Spielberg's assistant, and a man called saying that he had found a box of Super 8 films, all dusty, in the basement of his house. And I thought, okay. I didn't know if he was necessarily looking for money because he thought he found these films or what, so I was being cautious and I said, well, could you bring the box by the office and we'll take a look and see what it is. I hang up the phone, I asked Steven if he knows anything about it. He said, yeah, I lost all the films that I made as a kid and maybe that's them. So this man showed up with the box and sure enough, inside were all these films that Steven had made when he was 11, 12, 13 years old. And this man was unbelievably nice, wasn't looking for anything, and Steven recovered these films. So simultaneous to this, I'm reading an article in Variety, and these two kids in high school had won this video award. And I said to Steven, you know what would be great? Why don't we hire these guys to come in and clean your films and transfer them to tape? And he said, that's a great idea. And those two kids were J.J. Abrams and Matt Reeves. So the great thing is, Steven and I have kind of been at the forefront of watching J.J.'s amazing career in television and film. And when this opportunity came about, George and I started talking about what we thought was actually a very short list of people that we were considering to come in and launch episode 7. And JJ was at the top of that list. JJ embodies, I think, many of the qualities and a very similar personality to both George and Steven. He has a sense of aspiration in what he does. His films tend to be hopeful, they're fun and exciting. He understands how to use effects. He's a great storyteller, he's a writer as well as a director. So I think he's going to do an amazing job. And the group of writers that we've assembled with Michael Arndt and Larry Kasdan and Simon Kinberg, we couldn't have a better team in service of this movie. It's really exciting.
And then in your discussions, I mean, have you talked about how you're going to balance sort of honouring the existing films and then at the same time, obviously, you've got to create something fresh and new as well?
There's no question. I mean, I keep saying this, it is a daunting exercise. You guys probably know many more details than I do about everything inside the universe of Star Wars. So there's been an amazing education process that's had to go on with this. And conversations we had early on with George, where George, it was fantastic to just immerse ourselves with him day after day after day as he downloaded many of the ideas that he initially had. about how he came up with all of this. Just understanding that and getting a really strong foundation for just how complex this world is that he's created, and recognizing that these are important films to everybody here and everybody around the world who generationally now has grown up in this universe of Star Wars. We have to be careful with that. This is a huge responsibility associated with that, and we're all taking that really seriously.
That's good to hear. Was there anything, one particular thing you could tell us in those conversations that he said, a key thing that he passed on to you that sort of represents how you should take Star Wars forward? Was there anything you can say?
I think the key was that George kept saying over and over again, not only are these stories aspirational, but they're fun. He really wanted to make sure that we were going to maintain a sense of humor inside the storytelling. And I think he's absolutely right. That's what makes these movies really fun and separates them from a lot of others in a similar genre.
Of course, storytelling is hugely important to you as a producer. We see in the films that you've made in the past, and I know it is to George as well, because the heart of Star Wars is the story. It's not about the effects, is it? And that's, I think, why you'll be so important to this project as well.
So that is what I'm really excited about. I think we have an opportunity to create some amazing new characters, and the story and the characters are all we're talking about right now. We know that we have an amazing team inside of ILM that can create fantastic effects. But if we don't have great story and we don't have great characters, then the effects mean nothing.
When you see what's showing in theatres nowadays and things, what do you think's missing? What are the stories that aren't being told outside of Star Wars, obviously?
I mean, I don't want to suggest that all the films out there are missing something, but I do think, making huge popular culture, and I've had the good fortune of being involved in a lot of it, it's really, really hard to do, and it's really hard to get right. And I think if you don't pay attention to the real building or the foundation of these stories and really spend the time that you need on developing characters and finding the stories and finding unique stories, complicated stories, I think after a while the audience gets tired because they feel like they're seeing the same thing over and over again.
Absolutely. So Kathy, at the beginning of the interview today, I've asked people to tweet some questions to you. So I'd like to turn to the Twitter hashtag now and see if we have a question that we can put to Kathleen. What have we got? Okay, this is from Aniki Arneston. What is the most important thing you have learned about Star Wars fans since you announced Episode 7?
They control everything.
This is from Eric.
We are in service to you.
Well, that's lovely to hear. Actually, you're putty in their hands.
Are you nervous? Do I look nervous? Am I nervous? Okay, good.
I mean, are they saying, are you nervous about, embarking on this? But I think we've already talked about it. No, absolutely not. Thank you, Eric. Hope you're enjoying the show. Do we have another question? This is from Carl Vastor. What is the greatest difficulty in your job, and what is the greatest pleasure?
I would say the greatest difficulty is I keep trying not to constantly think about the responsibility I have to this and to all of you. That's something that, plays constantly in the back of my mind.
Well, you shouldn't have come here today, really. It's going to hit home now.
The pleasure is that it is such an amazingly rich universe that it's just so fun every single time we sit down and start talking about the things that we want to do. The new things that we're doing, the Rebels TV show, eventually creating new television, the things that we can eventually do online, the games that we're starting to have conversations about, and the worlds that we can create with that, and the spin-offs inside the movies that we're talking about, just the constant creative conversation that we're having about what the possibilities are inside the Star Wars universe. That's something that I just find an incredible good fortune to be a part of that.
Okay, hi Kathy, I'm a young filmmaker in training. Have you tips for me to make good movies with good stories?
Good scripts.
Start with a good script.
Start with a good script.
Because ultimately that is the foundation of a good film, isn't it? Without that, there's nothing really, is there? However good the effects are, it's nothing. Okay, great. You mentioned that you've been having discussions and things and meetings and talking about characters and things. Well, I was with Doug Chang and Ian McCabe the other day, and some of your conceptual artists on the new movies, and we did a little sketch together. Okay, so we all contributed to this sketch. And I would like to present it to you, to show you, in case you can take it back to any of your meetings. But this is a little alien character we came up with. Okay? So I drew the feet, Doug drew the body, and Ian drew the head there, okay? He hasn't got a name yet, we're still working on that. But what I noticed about this character, he's quite short, isn't he? It's quite, you can sort of... he's quite short there. But it's quite a cool little piece of art, isn't it? I think Doug and Ian are going to take it back to the office because they were inspired. They were. What are your initial thoughts when you see that?
My initial thoughts are it looks like some combination of Star Wars and E.T.
Okay. I don't know whether that's a bad thing, but yes, I just thought I'd show you that.
And we'll see. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see.
Very good. Very good.
Something a bit more concrete than that, but there you go. It's not a contract, is it? Have you noticed what you're sitting in front of there, just behind you? Have you seen what it's a little fluffy thing there? What's that? It's an Ewok.
I don't know.
It's an Ewok, then, isn't it? An Ewok. It's an Ewok. Yeah. It's an Ewok. Do you have an Ewok? Do you have one of those? No, I didn't say that. Did I say that? No, I said, I was going to give you a gift of that Ewok. That's what I was going to do.
Thank you. I'm so sorry I misinterpreted the question.
Take that with you. My compliments. Yeah. Wicked Ewok, guys.
I'll just keep him right here.
You can just keep him there. Do take him with you, though. Okay. Back to the Twitter. What's a typical day like for you? I mean, we don't have to start with getting out of bed, breakfast, and all that. Don't skip that bit.
Well, right now, a typical day is I've been spending part of my time up at Lucasfilm in San Francisco, and then the second half of my week is usually spent with JJ and the writing team down at Bad Robot. And I just tend to go back and forth. JJ's actually on a bit of a break right now, so we're doing a lot of Skyping in our conversations. But right now, the focus is almost every day we are sitting in long, lengthy story meetings. And great stuff is coming out of those discussions.
Now this is something I'm intrigued about. When you're working at Lucasfilm, are you sitting in George's office where he used to work? Or have you got your own office, different one?
George is still in the main house at the ranch.
Is he?
Yes. And we're in the building in the Presidio, and yes, I'm in his office.
Do we have anything else from the Twitter feed? Thank you. Will you be employing Warwick? That's a good question. That's a good question.
Actually, it's all we talk about.
Is that what you talk about in your meetings?
It is. Yeah, constantly. Yeah.
Get up, breakfast,
Yeah,
George's office.
Well, it's not only the design you showed me, there's many more.
There's many more? Wow. That's very good. Thank you very much indeed. You heard it here. Witnesses. Right here. That's good. Right. I'm slightly embarrassed now. It got really warm in here all of a sudden. the Twitter, have we got any more questions for Kathy? See, they're all asking. Oh, here we go. What's your favourite project?
I always get asked that. It's so hard to pick something. I think in front of this crowd I'm going to say Ep7.
Very diplomatic, that is. Well, apart from Ep7, I mean, what makes something your favourite? I mean, you look